Well, AOC, and let me know if you believe this, is saying that MAGA Republicans are coming up to her and saying, man, I was wrong about Trump. I'm with socialism now. Do you buy that?
Absolutely not. In fact, I'd like to see some of the people who actually said that to AOC and check their ballots and see if they actually voted for President Trump, because I can assure you MAGA Republicans oppose everything that AOC and the modern day communist Democrat Party stands for. Mass migration and open borders like we saw under the Biden administration.
Now, AOC is sure that a wave of MAGA voters will abandon him in favor of Democrats, totally committed to the DNC in 20 to 8.
Men and women's sports is something MAGA Republicans and frankly the whole country rejects. It's a 90-10 issue, taxing people to death and taking their money and giving the majority of your income back to the government. That's a horrible idea that has not worked for thousands of years.
Karoline Leavitt vehemently disputes it. She just delivered one of the worst clapbacks of the year and asserts that AOC is wholly wrong.
I fully welcome Trump voters into our coalition. And I know that sounds crazy to some people, but just hear me out. I cannot tell you, it just happened to me like 2 weeks ago. I can't tell you how many times someone has pulled me aside and said either I was once a big Trump voter and a Trump supporter, but then I started to kind of expand my world and where I got information, and now I've learned, and now I've changed, and I'm with you.
They never tried to think for themselves, instead spending their days watching Fox News and taking in talking points. In her account, it had nothing to do with Biden's financial hardship, soaring grocery bills, excruciating gas prices, or excessive rent. For AOC, it's just media-induced brainwashing. Such haughty defense, nonetheless, wasn't ignored. Karoline Leavitt made the decision to reject AOC's remarks after hearing them.
The president just dealt with Chuck Schumer, and President Trump and Republicans shellacked Chuck Schumer and the entire Democrat Party. After 43 days of Chuck standing out there trying to bravely hold the country hostage and inflict massive pain on the American public, Chuck got absolutely nothing. And now the knives are out for him. As you can see, Jesse, as you just perfectly laid out in your monologue, the Democrat Party is in complete disarray. And the truth is, they have been for 10 years since President Trump came on the political scene.
Since then, a defined approach has given way to confusion in a series of frantic moves. It explains the persistent accusations made against him, which were followed by flashy investigations and court cases that suggested startling findings but ultimately produced little. It explains the long-running Russia connection controversy, which many Republicans contend never backed the Democratic promises. It also explains the incessant onslaught of disparaging comments and labels, as though mockery could replace a compelling argument.
They don't stand for anything good. They just stand for Donald Trump is bad. That's the only thing that unifies their party. And now you see how far they are moving to the left. They ran Senator Gillibrand and Senator Manchin out of town. Now they're running Chucky Schumer out of town. It's too bad he turned into a Palestinian. He did it for nothing, like President Trump says, because his own party is turning against him. And the Democrat Party is truly becoming a full-blown communist.
Karoline Leavitt argues that Democratic Party leaders are losing their grip on their own supporters, claiming the base now runs ahead of the people once guiding it. She points to longtime figures like Chuck Schumer, saying they appear increasingly at odds with activists they previously influenced, as the party has shifted sharply left. According to Leavitt, the most hardline groups now set the agenda, with decisions shaped by the loudest voices online and in the streets rather than by party leadership. She says leaders are being pushed aside because supporters see them as not aware enough, meaning a single misstep or moment of restraint can quickly earn labels like traitor or sellout. In her view, this growing tension shows a party turning inward, focused more on strict loyalty tests than on actually governing. And she adds that voters are noticing quietly stepping away as Democrats clash with one another and struggle to clearly define what they stand for.
Men in women's sports is something MAGA Republicans and frankly the whole country rejects. It's a 90-10 issue, taxing people to death and taking their money and giving the majority of your income back to the government. That's a horrible idea that has not worked for thousands of years. MAGA Republicans know it, and that's why they overwhelmingly voted to re-elect President Trump.
She doesn't dismiss it. She claims that concrete evidence, exact numbers, genuine identities, and receipts are all unavailable. It wasn't a coincidence. Regular voters were confused and irritated by the DNC's forceful, awakened agendas. It was a response and a backlash. Many Americans questioned medical transitions for children, objected of men playing women's sports, and were uneasy about the party's shift toward outright socialism.
MAGA Republicans know it, and that's why they overwhelmingly voted to re-elect President Trump. And a Democrat that you had in your monologue actually was right about one thing. I don't know his name, but I give him credit for his statement where he said that the Republican Party under President Trump is the party of the working man and woman. And because of President Trump's pro-growth, America First policies, he has spoken directly to the hearts of the forgotten men and women across this country. And that's who the Republican Party is today.
He appealed to the frustration of working-class people who were concerned about jobs, expenses, stability, and safety by using language they actually understood. Harris and the DNC simultaneously sought the most loud woke internet communities, coastal elites, and corporate funders. Instead of dining table issues, voters were given moral grandstanding, labels, and lectures. That distinction was significant. They are won over by developing relationships with real people going about their everyday lives.
Well, we'll have to see. And I'm very curious. I'll have to find out from our great Attorney General Pam Bondi if the Trump DOJ is continuing this investigation that the Biden DOJ launched. Jesse, it's a good question, and we will get on that. But as for Gavin Newsom, I was not surprised to see him in Brazil, traveling the world, probably on the taxpayer dime, talking about climate change when his state, California, has some of the highest energy costs in the entire country.
Karoline Leavitt also turns her fire toward Gavin Newsom, zeroing in on what
Karoline Leavitt also turns her criticism toward Gavin Newsom, calling out what she describes as clear political double standards. She faults him for constantly praising environmental protection while presiding over some of the highest energy costs in the country. According to Leavitt, it's simple to speak passionately about climate goals, but everyday families are left struggling with soaring gas and power bills just to keep their homes running. She argues that while Newsom's green plans may sound appealing on paper, they don't match real life for working-class Californians who can't afford solar systems, electric cars, or other costly alternatives. In her view, these policies aren't making life cleaner, but more expensive and harder, reflecting a gap between elite thinking and daily reality. Leavitt stresses that Californians aren't turning against caring for the environment. Instead, she says voters are growing frustrated with leaders who put ideology ahead of practicality and affordability.
They have some of the highest gasoline prices in the entire country, despite President Trump's efforts. And they are working to bring down oil and gas prices in this country, to drill baby drill, to unleash American energy dominance. Gavin has done so much damage to his state with the Green New scam and with this utopian pursuit of climate change that is just so false. It's built on a fallacy that he has run up energy costs in his state that people are fleeing his state.
Karoline argues that the warning signs are impossible to miss, pointing to how rising taxes, heavy rules, and constant paperwork are pushing more families and businesses to leave California. She says small business owners face an uphill battle every day, with growing tax bills, compliance costs, and permit fees that eventually become too much to handle. In her view, Newsom shows little concern, choosing instead to tighten control over businesses to serve big ideas and polished political messaging rather than easing the strain. Karoline says the result is easy to predict. Companies head to states with lower taxes, fewer hurdles, and more welcoming conditions. She calls it a basic failure of leadership, one that leads to shrinking tax revenue, weakened communities, and disappearing jobs, yet somehow continues to catch state leaders off guard. According to her, when leaders keep ignoring outcomes that seem obvious to everyone else, It stops looking like confidence and starts looking like indifference.
So maybe he should leave Brazil and stop talking about this issue that is hurting his own people and get back to governing what was once a beautiful state of California that people are fleeing en masse because of his horrific energy and economic policies that have made the cost of living in California completely out of control.
Yeah, the climate scam's kind of like DEI. It's dead, and it's never coming.
This means the crushing cost of living, which forces families into tough and unrealistic choices every month, can no longer be brushed aside. It means reducing the layers of bureaucracy that slow growth, raise prices, and choke small businesses before they ever get a fair chance. It also means strengthening dependable energy production instead of pushing policies that make electricity more expensive and less predictable. And above all, it means easing the tax pressure that keeps residents and employers from staying in California. Karoline's point is straightforward. Leadership isn't about flashy speeches or national spotlight moments. It's about making everyday life more manageable for regular people. She warns that if Newsom doesn't shift his focus back to those basics, people will keep leaving and Californians will keep paying the price for stubborn politics. When you step back, the pattern is hard to miss, as Democrats like AOC and Gavin Newsom offer slogans and explanations while voters ask for real results. According to Karoline, the party's focus on ideology, high taxes, and strict loyalty tests has pushed working Americans aside. And instead of listening, leaders dig in and then act shocked when support fades. Until Democrats confront why so many people are frustrated, she argues, no amount of clever messaging will slow the political backlash already underway. And that wraps up today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more.